Hello everyone, Mr. E here, reporting live for Sloptide News Network, your most trusted source for all things Darktide, and of course, Slop. Today we are tackling hotfix number 80, which is bringing us a number of changes to all of the classes. Hotfix actually bringing balance changes, unheard of in this day and age, but we have quite a bit to get into on that front, and I'll be breaking everything down for you here. But of course, if you want to support independent games journalism like this, you should subscribe and help me get to Warhammer 40k subs before the end of the year. Let's get into things, and we're first talking about all of the class balance changes that are coming with this update. And there's quite a few of them here. I'm honestly quite surprised to see this, although, it's been roughly about, what has it been, 3 weeks or a month since we've had this major update, the major overhaul to all the classes, so it's a good time to kind of revisit and see where everything is at. And that means that we are first starting with Arbites. Arbites has some changes here, and a lot of them are, at least 2 of them are buffs and 2 of them are nerfs. Arbites Vigilant is the buff, I'll show you right here. It's this buff way down here that gives the Forceful modifier an additional 2.5% strength for each stack that you expend when you charge in. So normally you build up to 10 stacks with this thing, then you'll use your ultimate ability, whatever your combat ability is. Usually you're using the charge with this, right? It works really well with it. And then that will give you a 25% strength buff for 10 seconds. This is now going up to 12 seconds, which is amazing because that's going to increase obviously the duration of the buff, but also it's going to increase the amount of time you have to build up those next stacks so that your downtime on those overall strength stacks is going to be much lower, which is great to hear because this was it's very powerful on paper, but it's hard to build those stacks up in time a lot of times. Retaliatory Force up here at the top, which is, where is it? There it is. This, instead of having 15% reduced block cost on perfect block gain, 15% damage, and 10% attack speed for 8 seconds, is now going to 15% attack speed for 8 seconds. This is already a very crazy node, right? So if you can time blocks at all perfectly, or just get a block when someone's attacking you, which is what a perfect block is, right? You have to start the block as the attack is about to hit you, then yeah, you're going to get a huge steroid for 8 seconds, 15% damage, and 15% attack speed, plus you get some free reduced block cost in there. Honestly, if you're going like sword and board here, remember perfect blocks can't apply to range attacks, but they do apply to all melee attacks. So this is an amazing steroid that will boost your damage significantly if you can pull this off. So nice buff to see there. But we are seeing a nerf to Castigator's Stance. Not really too much of a nerf. It's a 5-second nerf going from 45 seconds to 50 seconds. I think it's a fair criticism to say that this ability has probably too short of a cooldown for as good as it is, especially considering most times when you're using Castigator Stance, you were using it in concert with Malacator down here, which would take this effective 45-second cooldown and make it into a 30-second cooldown. And that's without considering things like cooldown reduction curios and the Psyker's cooldown aura on your team. And then, of course, we have Walk It Off as the last thing here. I'm very surprised to see this didn't get a nerf initially in the initial hotfix for Bound by Duty, but they are finally nerfing this. Instead of having 5% toughness per second over 3 seconds, you are now getting 3.3% per second over 3 seconds. This is still plenty, right? 3.3% of your toughness per second for just utilizing some stamina. Just spending 1 stamina, that counts sprinting, that counts blocking, that counts shoving, all those things were triggering this and just giving you a ton of regenerative stamina, very free. And a lot of times it made it questionable as to why you would choose Man and Cybermastiff over this. Now there is an argument to be made because Man and Cybermastiff will give you 5% per second when you're hanging out near your pupper, and this will only give you 3.3% per second as long as you're using stamina. You could use them both. But yeah, this ability was super strong, and it was an auto-include in most builds. This will bring it down a little bit, but I don't think it's going to maybe really hurt the class that much in terms of its its toughness regeneration. Let's take a look at Veteran here. Veteran has a change to Covering Fire, which is this talent right here, which is an amazing change to it. So I previously put this in a build where I did support Veteran, and this will give your allies within 8 meters of the target you kill with ranged attacks 15% toughness, and they get 15% to all base damage for 3 seconds. Now this is 6 seconds. So this is an actually really big buff to the team, a 6-second buff to all the other members. It doesn't count for you, but it counts for all the other members of the team, is quite a sizable buff. So we like that a lot. The lock and load talent, which is all the way down here, I'm on the wrong tree again, is all the way down here at the bottom now, is now going to 25% clip size, rounded up. That'll require some further testing, but that is going to really pump the magazine size on a lot of veteran weapons in a big way. And this is rounded up, of course, so revolvers are now 7-shot revolvers because 5 plus 25% rounded up is actually 2. So we're going to have 7-shot revolvers on the veteran, which will be kind of fun. Redirect fire is up next. This is a modifier for the focus target keystone, which previously was giving 2% stacking damage per stack that you killed on the target to every member on the team, including you, which would be obviously with all the stacks up to 12%. Now this is going to 2.5% damage for each stack, which can bring you up to 15%. Would that be right? Yeah, 15% damage for everybody lasting 10 seconds. Honestly, not bad. Already this was kind of an assumed one you would take if you were choosing this. Now this is going to make it a little bit better. Kill team is going from 5% damage to 7.5% damage. So we're seeing finally an overhaul. No, not much of an overhaul, but finally a buff to this aura to make it more viable. This is now just probably a kind of a decent aura if you've already got a survivalist on your team. 7.5% all damage isn't half bad. And then duty and honor, guys, it's finally here. The long-awaited nerf to the veteran shout, lowering the bonus toughness duration. So effectively, one of the things that was really broken about veteran shout was that the cooldown is so short, it's 30 seconds base, and that this buff right here was giving that gold toughness buff that was making you invulnerable to health damage while you have gold toughness at all, and it would last for 15 full seconds. So that means that you can regenerate your gold toughness even without receiving a shout from a nearby ally for the next 15 seconds after you've been shouted once, which was far too long because the cooldown would be up almost by then. And that's, again, 1.5 times as long as the gold buff you get from Zealot's Chorus ability, which has a much longer cooldown, right? It's much harder to pull off. And so this was just giving far too much gold coverage to the whole team and really leaving very little gaps for the enemies to actually get damage done in. So they're lowering this duration to 10 seconds. So your gold buffs are going to fall off a lot sooner. However, it will still have all of the other effects, right? It'll still gold you up. It'll still boost your toughness as the veteran to full instantly. It'll knock everything down. It's still going to be, probably the best ability in the game, but it's losing a little bit of that crazy annoying power where it's just like, oh my god, I'm gold all the time with this thing. Okay, we got to go over to the Zealot next. The Zealot is getting some changes here that are a little bit confusing to me, well, at least this one right here. But punishment, the impact is changing on punishment. Let me show you where that is. It is right here. Punishment, when you hit at least 3 enemies with an attack, you get 5% impact strength for 5 seconds, stacks 5 times. So this is now going to 8% for 8 seconds, I believe it said. Yes, so that will now allow us to stack up to 40% impact instead of 25% impact, which seems a lot better. And also the stacks will not fall off like almost instantly at 5 seconds instead of the now 8 seconds that you'll get to last with this buff. I still don't think this buff is very good or necessary on almost any builds, but at least makes it, pulls out of like D tier and makes it C tier. And then Pious Cutthroat is getting a little bit of a nerf here. As if Zealot's cooldown abilities didn't get enough of a nerf, we're lowering the cooldown regeneration due to how easy it is to keep uptime on it. Fair enough that Pious Cutthroat, which is previously this ability right here, which is triggering 100% ability cooldown regeneration for 2 seconds after a melee weak spot hit or a melee backstab, both of which do not require you to kill the enemy, you just have to hit them. So that was doubling your cooldown, right? The problem with this, lowering is that, this Invocation of Death is just far better now, in my opinion, if you're using any sort of weapon that is critting at all, because you can almost guaranteed, playing a Zealot, get a crit at least once every 3 seconds. And this is also not a kill required sort of thing. You just have to get a crit hit. So this one is just far worse now because it's only giving you 75% of your cooldown reduction, cooldown regeneration. So every 4 seconds, you'll gain an extra 3 seconds of cooldown. I already rated this one a little bit lower than Invocation of Death in my tier list, and I'm going to rate it even lower still now. And then Riposte, this one is down here. Dodging was giving stacking melee damage, stacking up to 5 times, lasting 8 seconds. At 4%, this was another 20% melee damage. I mean, the Zealot is already cracked on terms of melee damage. Damage really isn't his issue, so them nerfing this is not that big a deal, and I can see why they would probably do that, because it's very, very easy to quote-unquote successfully dodge and get this stacked up to a full 20% melee. So that's being lowered down to an overall 15% melee. Then we're going to go on to this Psyker, which has been a incredible powerhouse in this patch. Inner Tranquility is getting its peril reduction reduced from 6% to 8%. I believe that's here, right? Yeah, so where this is going to 8% general peril generation reduction for each warp charge, which means when you have maximum warp charges, you're pretty much halving your peril generation, if that is something you're interested in doing. I don't really ever take that node, but hey, more power to you. Kinetic Presence, which is the elite damage, is going to 10% elite damage. So, you know, honestly, these two were just so far dominant over this. Flat damage is almost never the way to go. Cooldown reduction is very valuable, and so is crit chance for the whole team. So this is a nice thing to bring it sort of more in line. And then finally, the one that I very much anticipated happening, which is that the Psykinetics aura is getting a big nerf here. So previously, which you can see here while it's still not quite yet updated on Games Lantern, the Psykinetics aura was giving double cooldown regeneration for 3 seconds when you or an ally incoherency kills an elite or a specialist enemy. Now this is going to be 60% regeneration. So what this means is that over, say, 10 seconds, you will get an additional 6 seconds of cooldown, which is going to make it a little bit harder to infinitely sustain certain things, such as certain smite builds, right? Currently, things like infinite smite, infinite casting are just super brain dead. You literally have to get like 1 elite kill in that 10-second window in order to get this to be active. With this, you're going to have to really get those full time. Like, you're going to have to get them on cooldown every time in order to keep those abilities active 100% of the time, which they really shouldn't be. Like, that's not really healthy for the game to have infinite smite, infinite casting. But yeah, that's a nice and well-deserved nerf there, because this is the one cooldown ability in the whole game that got a tremendous boost. It stole the cooldown reduction that was being given to all the rest of the team, and it turned it into super crazy cooldown that the Psyker honestly really doesn't need, because all of his abilities already have crazy cooldowns. Okay, let's go on to the Ogryn. The Ogryn is getting a good number of buffs here. First of all, Stay Close, which is his aura, his middle aura here, is going to 20% toughness replenishment for you and allies in coherency. This is still, like, you know, honestly a pretty good choice. It was already a pretty good choice at 15% toughness replenishment, but now it's 20%, which means that if you have, say, an Arbites who gets 10% of his toughness back when he staggers an enemy out of the melee hit, he's now going to get 12% instead of 11.5%. So that's going up a little bit, and this is just going to overall boost toughness regeneration for the team. I honestly think this is quite a good choice. You know, Bonebreaker's aura is better if you're going for a melee focus team, but what if you've got like 2 veterans and a Psyker, right? Then you might go for this instead to help them keep topped off, and you don't need that much melee damage for yourself. Yeah, it's definitely a bringing it up in line with the rest of them. For the Lilans, cooldown is going down to 20 seconds from our 30 seconds. So that was basically when allies get their toughness broken, you get some strength, you get toughness damage reduction for 10 seconds, and it had a really long cooldown, right? So this is now going to give you much shorter cooldown between these boosts of damage. This, honestly, I don't think is still really that good. Unfortunately, you know, an ally getting their toughness fully broken like that isn't all that common, and yeah, the buffs here aren't that crazy in my opinion, but yeah, a buff to it is fine nonetheless. But the real winner here is Feel No Pain. Feel No Pain is getting a stack replenish rate from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, so meaning you can fully stack your Feel No Pain keystone to 10 full stacks in 20 seconds instead of 30, which is a massive change, right? This had the problem before of, like, you know, if you take a bunch of hits back to back, you'll lose these stacks so quickly, and you get one every 3 seconds, plus you can get an additional one if you push enemies. But just at the base level, this took a very long time to stack up, and it's very easy to lose these stacks as the Ogryn. Now getting one every 2 seconds kind of makes this, like, quite viable, because this is going to be most of the way stacked up very often in combat, especially if you can dodge taking damage for like a second or two to buy yourself a couple extra stacks. And then finally penultimately, Get Stuck In, I can't believe this is getting a buff. This is such a strong talent. Get Stuck In previously gave 20% movement speed to you and all allies when you activate your combat ability, and immunity to stuns and suppression for 4 seconds. This is going to 6 seconds, guys. This is a S tier, S plus tier ability. You should be taking this on most Ogryn builds. I take it on Ogrenheimer. I take it on Bonkzerker. I take it on Indomitable Ogryn. Like all those builds utilize this, because when you taunt, you are going to start moving 20% faster, which is a lot faster, and you're going to boost all your allies too. 6 seconds is a long time. That can really, really make the difference in closing the gap or creating a gap for your allies or for you. And yeah, this is an amazing talent now, especially with that extra duration. So I'm very happy to see that, because I love that talent. And then Delight and Destruction is getting a little bit of a nerf here. Delight and Destruction being the bleed stacks damage reduction. So this was previously giving 8% all damage resist, so both toughness and health per bleeding enemy in melee range, stacking 4 times. This obviously is just absurd, right? 32% all damage resistance for just bleeding 4 enemies, right? It's how often are you in a situation where there's less than 4 enemies around you as an Ogryn, and it's so easy to get bleeds out there. Now this is being changed to only give 5% per stack, and it goes only up to 30%, and you also have to get 6 stacks. So this is getting a lot worse, but this is already one of the strongest damage reduction talents in the game, at least as far as how easy it is to activate. So that is that's very nice to see. That they're realizing that, like, yeah, this sort of thing, the damage reduction, just the flat damage reduction on the Ogryn, is making him so that he can just like face tank like the world, basically, especially on lower difficulties where there's just not that much damage going out. Let's talk about the last bit of balance here before we talk about some crash fixes, which is enemy balance. Scab captains, they've had their health lowered quite a bit. You know, these guys are lasting all day, and Dread captains have had their health lowered as well. Yeah, apparently this increase was unintended, and that makes sense. Like, I don't think this will really affect many people's games. These are only in Malice and Uprising. I didn't see that change in Havoc or anything. I think they were just the exact same health values they already had up there. And then we have a lowered chance for scab plasma gunners during events, and I think this is probably something that many people are very glad to see. It was kind of like clockwork, where during your event missions, whether it's the mid mission or the end mission, there would be a massive wave of like 12, 15 plasma gunners that were gonna spawn at some point during it. You could like bank on it, and yeah, that'll be nice to see that lowered, because you were basically just relegated to hunkering down and waiting for this plasma wave to spawn, because if you get caught out in the open when it happens, it was going to kill you. And this will sort of alleviate some of that necessity of camping in cover, and allow people to play without the fear that, oh, here it comes, the every single time plasma gunner thing happening. And let's finally talk about some fixes, some crash fixes, etc. down here. I'm just going to go out, just go ahead and here and say that as far as crash fixes go, none of the ones that are covered here are the ones that you want it to be, really. You hope in your heart of hearts that it's going to be 2014 or 2016 or 2004 or whatever those crashes are that are commonly happening. The ones that are so pervasive that we actually remember the numbers that they are. And then also the ever-present Havoc-only crash, it would seem, where just everybody just gets sent directly to desktop. Everybody in the whole team just gets yanked out of the game, and so you automatically lose those attempts. Yeah, those are the crashes that we are really concerned with here at Sloptide News Network, and this is not any of those, so I won't waste your time reading those to you today. Of course, there's the cosmetic fixes. I, for one, am very excited they finally fixed the accessory clipping with the Zealot's Pilgrim's Jerkin upper body cosmetic. That's a really big win for me. And then I have to come down here and mention one particular thing that happened in these fixes. They have fixed a bug, which is that the Psyker's Charge Strike talent electrocution damage, aka the thing that was making certain builds that were kind of abusing the fact that you could literally melee anything and kill it instantly with the Charge Strike talent. Yeah, those are now no longer going to be any good, because it's reducing this damage by, like, 1/3. It's going to be lowering it. It's going to be 33% of the value you had before. So it's going back to the original shock values, which is not that good, not that impressive, but definitely better than was pre-patch. So that does nerf those builds that I put out. So I'll make that commentary change when I get the chance. And I think that's really it as far as things that you'll be mainly considered, mainly concerned about in this patch. Hopefully you understand and are excited for some of these changes. I know some of these changes are really cool, like the buffs to kill team and redirect fire, lock and load, covering fire. Like giving more options, bringing up those things that are lower down in the talent tier list are going to be very, very nice. And I hope to see more diversity in terms of choices that way. I'm also kind of happy that we saw Psychonetics Aura getting nerfed, because Psychers were running fucking wild out there with that cooldown reduction. And that is it, guys. So thank you very much for listening to this edition of Sloptide News, and I'll see you next time. Mystery out. Bye-bye.